Okay, let's get started. We put a lot of trust in the internet, right? I mean, everything from our banking info to,
Uh,
just endlessly scrolling cat videos.
oh, absolutely.
It's like we just assume it'll all work seamlessly and securely. But do we ever stop to think about how that trust actually works?
That's a great question.
Like, how do we know that the website we're on is really who they say they are? It all boils down to this thing most people don't even realize exists. Certificate authorities. Have you ever heard of them?
Oh, yeah. Certificate authorities, or CAs as they are called. They are basically the digital notaries of the internet.
Digital notaries, huh? I like that.
Yeah, they're the ones verifying that a website is legit and that the connection is secure.
So they're the reason we see that little padlock icon in our browsers. That thing that makes us feel all safe and secure.
Exactly. But here's the catch. The current system is centralized,
Centralized.
meaning that just a handful of organizations control most of the world's CAs.
And that's a problem.
It creates single points of failure. So if one of these organizations gets hacked or, just makes a mistake, it can impact millions of users.
Wow.
And we've seen it happen before, right? With companies like Symantec, DigiCert, millions of users were affected. And it really highlights just how fragile this centralized model can be.
Yeah, that doesn't sound very reassuring. So what's the alternative? Is there a better way to do this?
Well, that is what is so fascinating about this new research paper by Enclave Research. They're proposing a decentralized CA.
Using Chainlink.
Using Chainlink, precisely. It's a pretty radical idea that could potentially make the internet a much safer and more transparent place.
Okay, I am intrigued. Let's dive into this. But first, for those of us who maybe aren't, blockchain experts, what exactly does decentralized even mean in this context? Like, how does it apply to certificate authorities?
It means that no single entity controls the system. So instead of relying on a few big players, a decentralized CA would use a distributed network of computers to verify websites and issue certificates.
Okay, so more like a digital democracy instead of a digital monarchy, if you will.
I love that analogy. That's a perfect way to put it. And you know what? That has some big advantages. It makes the system much more resilient because even if one part of the network goes down, the rest can keep running. And it also increases transparency because all the records are public and auditable.
Okay, starting to see the appeal here, but how does this actually work in practice? I mean, verifying things in the real world, like proving that you own a website, can be tricky enough. How do you do that in a decentralized way?
Well, that's one of the key challenges, and Enclave Research has some pretty clever solutions using Chainlink's technology. One tool they are proposing is called Deco, which lets you prove things like domain ownership privately without revealing any sensitive information.
Ah, okay. So it's kind of like showing your ID to prove your age, but you don't actually have to hand it over. You're just proving that you have it and that it's valid.
Exactly. It uses zero-knowledge proofs, which that's a whole other fascinating area of cryptography. Maybe we can deep dive into that another time.
I got that noted down. All right, so private verification, check. What else makes this Chainlink solution unique? What else are they bringing to the table?
Well, they leverage Chainlink's decentralized oracles,
Decentralized oracles.
which act like secure data feeds. So they're pulling information from multiple sources to verify all sorts of things. And in this case, it could be, used to check DNS records, business registrations, or any other data that helps confirm that a website is legitimate.
So it's almost like having like a team of digital detectives, out there cross-checking information from all over the place, making sure everything lines up.
Exactly. And because these oracles are decentralized, they're a lot harder to manipulate or compromise compared to, a single centralized source.
Okay, so we've got private verification, secure data feeds, this whole distributed network.
Yeah.
Anything else in the Chainlink toolbox?
They also utilize smart contracts,
Smart contracts.
which are essentially self-executing agreements on the blockchain. So in this case, the smart contracts would automate a lot of the tasks that are currently done by CAs, like issuing and revoking certificates.
Ah, so it's less human error, more efficiency, faster response times if there's a problem.
Precisely. And because everything is recorded on the blockchain, there's a permanent and transparent record of every action taken. No more shady dealings or hidden information. It's all out in the open.
It's not just about security then, it's about accountability as well.
Absolutely. Transparency and accountability are built into the very fabric of the system.
This all sounds really promising, but I'm guessing there's some hurdles to overcome, right? I mean, shifting from this centralized system to a decentralized one, that's a pretty big change.
You are absolutely right. There are definitely some significant challenges. And, Enclave Research doesn't shy away from those in their paper. One of the biggest hurdles is just the sheer complexity of implementing a system like this.
Yeah, I can imagine. Building this decentralized CA from the ground up, making sure it's secure, making sure it's reliable, that's got to be a pretty massive undertaking.
It is, but it's not just about the technical challenges either. There's also the issue of adoption.
You mean getting people to actually use this new system?
Exactly. For a decentralized CA to be successful, you need buy-in from a lot of different players.
Mm.
Browser makers, website owners, everyday internet users, you name it. It's a pretty big shift in how we think about trust online.
Right. You can build the best mousetrap in the world, but you still have to convince people to stop using the old one.
Exactly. And there are some valid concerns people might have. Some people might be worried about the cost or the speed, or some might just be hesitant to trust a technology they don't fully understand.
And that's fair. We're really just scratching the surface here. We've talked about the problems with the current CA system. We've gotten a glimpse of how a decentralized solution could work. But I'm really curious to dig deeper into Chainlink's specific role in all of this. What unique features make Chainlink so well suited for this task?
That's a great question. And that is where things get even more fascinating. Chainlink brings a lot more to the table than just your basic blockchain functionality.
Well, let's unpack that then. Let's get into the nitty-gritty.
All right, so Enclave Research's proposal actually utilizes several key features of Chainlink that are specifically designed to tackle the challenges of building a decentralized CA.
Hit me with them.
First, they leverage Chainlink VRF, which stands for Verifiable Random Function. It's a way to generate truly random numbers, which is crucial for creating secure and unpredictable certificate IDs.
Okay, so no more predictable patterns for hackers to exploit. Got it. Randomness equals security.
Exactly. Then there's DECO, which we touched on earlier. This allows for verifying identity and domain ownership privately using zero-knowledge proofs.
Right, that whole I'm over 21, but I don't have to show you my ID thing.
Yeah.
Super cool, and definitely relevant in today's world where privacy is so important.
Absolutely. And of course, let's not forget about the decentralized oracles themselves. They pull in external data, like DNS records, securely and reliably from multiple sources, not just one.
So it's like this distributed fact-checking system, making sure all the information is accurate and trustworthy. I love that.
Exactly. And then to top it all off, they propose using smart contracts and something called keepers.
Keepers, what are those?
They are basically like automated bots
Okay.
that ensure that everything runs smoothly. So they handle things like certificate renewals and revocations automatically. So there's less room for human error and a much faster response to any problems that might arise.
So less paperwork, less bureaucracy, more automation. I'm starting to see why Enclave Research is so excited about this Chainlink solution. It seems to address a lot of those key challenges of building a decentralized CA.
It really does. And it's not just about making the system more secure and efficient. It's also about making it more transparent and fair. One of the other key aspects of this proposal is the use of proof of reserves.
Proof of reserves. I haven't heard of that before.
It's basically a way to ensure that any financial backing in the system is, fully transparent. It's auditable, so there is no room for shady dealings or hidden funds. Everything is out in the open for everyone to see.
So it's like a financial audit that is built into the system itself, adding another layer of accountability. This is all starting to paint a very different picture of how the internet could work.
It is. It's about moving away from just blindly trusting in a few powerful entities and towards a system where trust is, it's distributed, it's verifiable, and ultimately more secure.
Well, this has been a fascinating overview. We've covered a lot of ground. We've talked about the flaws in the current CA system, the potential of the decentralized alternative, and how Chainlink's technology could play a really crucial role in making that vision a reality.
We've just scratched the surface, though. There's a lot more to explore here.
Well, listeners, hold on to your hats, because in the next part of our deep dive, we're going to walk through a hypothetical scenario of how this decentralized CA would actually work in practice. We'll follow the journey of a website owner, getting a certificate, and we'll see how all the pieces of this puzzle actually fit together.
And we'll also delve into the specific advantages of this model compared to the traditional CA system, and we'll take a closer look at some of the remaining challenges and how those might be addressed.
So if you're ready to go even deeper into the world of decentralized CAs, stick with us. This is where things get really interesting. Okay, so we've talked about the why. We know that the current certificate authority system has some serious problems. Now, I want to get into the how. How would this decentralized CA actually work using Chainlink? I mean, if I'm a website owner, what's my first step?
Well, instead of going to one of those big traditional CAs, you'd interact with a decentralized network.
Okay.
It's kind of like presenting your website and all of its credentials to this global panel of notaries, all powered by Chainlink.
Interesting. So instead of one central authority, it's more like a whole team vetting my site, making sure it's legit.
Exactly. And one of the things that people often ask about decentralized systems is, doesn't that mean giving up some control?
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, how do I prove that I own my domain, without giving away all my sensitive information?
And that is where DECO comes in.
DECO.
That privacy-enhancing tool we talked about earlier, it uses something called zero-knowledge proofs. So you are basically proving ownership without actually revealing the underlying data.
So it's kind of like those I'm over 21 cards, where you can prove your age without showing your whole ID, right? You're just proving you have it and that it's valid.
Exactly. It's cryptography, but in a way, it's almost like a magic trick.
I like that analogy, a digital magic trick to keep things secure.
Okay.
Okay, so I've proven I'm the rightful owner of my website. What's next?
That's where Chainlink VRF comes into play.
Okay.
So VRF generates this, truly random, unique ID for your certificate.
Right.
So there are no predictable patterns that some hacker could exploit.
Okay.
It's essentially giving your certificate like a digital fingerprint, something that's completely unique and impossible to forge.
I like that. So randomness is key for security in this case.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got my unique ID. I've proven I'm the owner. What happens next? How do we actually make sure that all the information about my website is accurate and that I'm not, some shady character trying to scam people?
Well, that's where those decentralized oracles that we were talking about before really come in.
Right.
So they are constantly pulling in data from different sources to make sure everything is on the up and up.
Okay.
So, they will look at things like, DNS records, WHOIS data, even business registration info, if that's relevant.
Okay.
And because they are pulling from multiple independent sources, it's a lot harder for someone to try and, game the system.
Got it. So it's not just about, checking a box. It's about doing real verification and building trust. I like that.
That's exactly it. It's all about making the internet a safer place, one website at a time. So once these oracles have gathered all of the necessary information, they hand it over to, well, you guessed it, the smart contract.
Ah, yes, the smart contracts, the enforcers, the judges.
Exactly. So the smart contracts will actually automatically verify all the data that has been collected by the oracle.
Okay.
And then they decide whether or not to issue the certificate. No human bias, no backroom deals. It's just the code executing according to the rules.
And this is all, of course, happening on the blockchain. Everything is meticulously documented and transparent for everyone to see.
Absolutely. Every step, every piece of data, every single decision recorded on a public and immutable ledger. It's like this global notary service tracking everything in real time. Okay, so let's say I've passed all the tests. I've got my unique ID, the oracles give me the green light, the smart contract issues my certificate. How does a regular person's browser know to trust this new type of certificate? I mean, all the browsers out there are built to work with the old system, right?
Exactly. That's the beauty of it. Their browser or any other software that needs to verify this certificate can directly query those same decentralized oracles that we talked about. It's like this constant security check running in the background, making sure that my certificate is still valid and that it hasn't been compromised.
Exactly. And if for any reason your certificate needs to be revoked, let's say your website gets hacked, or maybe you change ownership or something, the process is just as seamless.
Okay.
An on-chain transaction is initiated, the certificate is marked as revoked, and that information is instantly propagated across the entire network.
Wow. So it's like a global security alert system. Everyone's on the same page. Nobody gets fooled by a bad certificate. This is way more robust than I was imagining.
It is. And because it's all decentralized, there's no single point of failure.
Right.
Even if one part of the system has a problem, the rest can keep running smoothly. That's a level of resilience that we just don't have with the traditional CA model.
Okay, I'm convinced. This sounds incredibly efficient, sounds secure. But for me, as, just a regular person browsing the web, shopping online,
Right.
What's the real difference? Why should I care about decentralized CAs?
It really comes down to a safer, more trustworthy internet experience for everyone.
Okay.
So instead of just blindly trusting a few big companies, you're relying on this transparent, verifiable system.
Right.
And if one website certificate has problems, it doesn't bring down the whole system like it could with traditional CAs.
So it's like the difference between putting all your eggs in one basket versus spreading them out a bit.
Right. I love that analogy. That's a perfect way to put it. And that resilience actually extends beyond just security, too. Think about, some countries censor parts of the internet, right?
Right.
They try and control what their citizens can access.
Yeah.
But a decentralized system is much harder to censor or manipulate.
Wow, I hadn't even thought about that. So it's not just about protecting against hackers, it's about keeping the internet open and accessible for everybody.
Exactly. It's about building a more democratic and resilient internet, where power is truly distributed and information can flow freely.
This is really eye-opening. But even with all these benefits, we have to ask, are there any downsides? Every system has its trade-offs, right? What are we giving up to get this decentralized utopia?
You're right. No system is perfect. And Enclave Research, acknowledges this in their paper. There are definitely some hurdles to overcome with decentralized CAs.
Okay, well, lay them on me. What are some of the challenges we need to be aware of?
Well, for one, there's the complexity we were talking about earlier. Building and maintaining this kind of system at a global scale is a pretty big undertaking.
So it's not something that's going to happen overnight.
It's going to take time, effort, a lot of coordination from a lot of different players.
Right, so it's a long-term investment, not a quick fix.
Exactly. And then, of course, there's the cost factor.
Okay.
Decentralized systems can sometimes be more expensive to run than traditional centralized ones.
Interesting.
At least initially.
Right.
But as the technology matures and more people adopt it, those costs will likely come down quite a bit. It's like any new technology, early adoption comes with a premium.
Right, that makes sense.
And then there's also the human factor.
Okay.
People are used to the way things work now, and change can be, uncomfortable for a lot of people.
Yeah.
We need to educate users about the benefits of decentralized CAs and make sure that the transition is as smooth as possible.
Right. It's not enough to just build a better system. You have to show people why it's better and help them understand how to actually use it.
Exactly. Education and awareness are going to be key here.
Well, this has been an incredible deep dive so far. We've gone from the theoretical to the practical, from the technical to the human aspects. And I really feel like I'm starting to grasp the potential of these decentralized CAs and how Chainlink can help make this a reality.
I'm really glad to hear that. But we're not quite done yet.
Oh.
There is one crucial aspect of decentralized systems that we haven't really discussed.
And what's that?
Governance.
Ah, yes. Governance, the big one. Who's actually in charge in this new world of decentralized CAs? How do we make sure that it stays fair, that it's transparent, and that it truly benefits everybody?
Those are excellent questions, and that is exactly what we are going to explore in the final part of our deep dive.
Okay, so we've gone deep on the what and the how of decentralized certificate authorities using Chainlink. But now we've got to tackle the big question, the who. Who's actually in charge here? How do we make sure a decentralized system is truly fair, transparent, and benefits everyone, not just a select few?
That is where governance comes in. It's one of the most crucial and honestly often overlooked aspects of any decentralized system. Without a solid approach to governance, we risk just recreating the same power imbalances and vulnerabilities that we see in the centralized world. It defeats the whole purpose.
So it's not enough to just, get rid of the central authority. We have to actually replace it with something better, something that truly distributes power and decision-making in a fair and effective way.
Exactly. And there is no, one-size-fits-all solution here. The best governance model really depends on the specific context, the community that's involved, and the goals of the system. It's not a simple answer.
Can you give us some examples of different governance models that people are exploring in the blockchain space, just to kind of wrap our heads around the options?
Sure. One common approach is what's called on-chain governance,
Okay.
where the decision-making power is actually encoded directly into the blockchain protocol itself.
Right.
This can be really transparent and secure, but it can also be pretty slow and inflexible.
Yeah, I imagine it's kind of like trying to steer a giant ship, right?
Yeah.
It takes a lot of time and effort to change direction once you've set a course.
Exactly. That's a great analogy. Another approach is off-chain governance, where decisions are made by, a separate group or a community kind of outside the blockchain itself.
Interesting.
This can be a bit more agile, responsive to change, but it also introduces the potential for, centralization or bias if we are not careful.
So it's a bit of a balancing act then, right? Trying to find that sweet spot between efficiency and maintaining true decentralization.
Exactly. And then, of course, you have hybrid models, which combine elements of both on-chain and off-chain governance, trying to get the best of both worlds.
Right.
The choice of which model to use is a complex one, and it often involves a lot of trade-offs. There's no easy answer.
It sounds like finding the right governance model is an ongoing experiment, right? A process of trial and error as we figure out what actually works best in different situations.
Yeah, it really is. And it requires, a lot of open discussion, debate, collaboration between everyone involved.
So let's talk about decentralized certificate authorities then. What are some of the key governance questions that we need to be thinking about?
Well, for starters, we need to decide who gets to actually operate a node in the network.
Right.
What are the criteria for participation? How do we prevent any single entity from having too much influence?
So we are not just recreating, those same old power structures that we were trying to get away from in the first place.
Exactly. We also need to establish, clear rules, procedures for things like issuing and revoking certificates. What are those standards for verification? How do we handle disputes? How do we deal with appeals?
So it's not just about the technology itself, it's about the rules of engagement, that legal framework that ensures everything is fair and accountable.
Absolutely. And then there's the question of how do we actually evolve this system over time, as technology changes, as new threats emerge, how do we make sure that the protocol and the rules and even the governance model itself can adapt and stay relevant and secure?
It sounds like a never-ending process, honestly. This constant balancing act between security, innovation, and just the evolving needs of the internet.
It is. But it's a challenge that is definitely worth embracing. The potential benefits of creating a truly decentralized, secure, and trustworthy internet are enormous.
I completely agree. And I think what's so exciting about this space is just how early it is. We're just beginning to scratch the surface of what's possible with decentralization and how it can really reshape our digital world.
Exactly. And, this research from Enclave Research is such a perfect example of that. They're not just proposing a new technology, they're proposing a new way of thinking about trust, security, and governance online. It's a pretty big shift.
It really is. It's about moving away from that blind faith in institutions and towards a system where trust is actually earned, it's verified, and it's distributed among a network of participants.
Exactly. It's about empowering individuals, fostering transparency, and building a more resilient, equitable, and secure internet for everyone.
I think that's a perfect place to wrap up this deep dive. We've gone from the basics of certificate authorities to the intricacies of zero-knowledge proofs and decentralized oracles, and of course, the crucial importance of thoughtful governance.
We've definitely covered a lot of ground, and I hope we've sparked some curiosity in our listeners and maybe even inspired them to explore these ideas further.
Absolutely. So before we sign off, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought. We've been talking about decentralized CAs, but this is really just one example of how decentralization can be applied. What other parts of our digital lives could benefit from this kind of approach? What other systems could be made more secure, more transparent, more accountable by distributing power and control in this way?
That's a great question. And honestly, the possibilities are pretty much endless. From social media to financial systems, supply chains, even healthcare, the potential applications of decentralization are vast, and they are still largely unexplored.
It's a really exciting time to be following this tech, to witness this revolution in how we think about trust and security online. And it's really up to all of us to participate, to demand better systems, and to build the kind of digital world we want to live in.
Well said. The future of the internet isn't something that just happens to us. It's something we create together. One line of code, one innovative idea, one deep dive at a time.
Stay curious and keep diving deep. Be sure to check out the show notes for links to the Enclave Research paper and other resources we mentioned today. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep building that future you want to see.